China has urged foreign media to obey by its laws. It's defended its handling of 2 Australian journalists who have been flown out of the country after a 5-day diplomatic standoff. Now, we'll take you live to China for Beijing's reaction shortly. But first, why the Australians were questioned over a national security case. ABC's Stephen Zizik reports.
After almost 5 decades, the ABC checks out of China. Bill Birtle's lonely departure ending a tense 7-day ordeal. The ABC's China correspondent for 5 years, Birtles is now back in Australia.
It's a relief to be back in the country with genuine rule of law.
His posting time cut short by a late-night visit from Chinese officials.
Midnight on Wednesday, the knock at the door came and there were 6 state security police plus a translator.
Last week, Australia's embassy warned him to get out of China, but before he could get on a plane, police barred him from leaving.
That's when this standoff, this diplomatic game of chess really commenced.
Good morning from Shanghai.
And there were 2 pawns. The Australian Financial Review's China correspondent Michael Smith was also banned from leaving. Both men ended up taking refuge on Australian diplomatic compounds, Birtles in Beijing and Smith in Shanghai, while Australian and Chinese officials wrangled over their future.
Our embassy has, I think, worked very hard, very diligently in the past few days.
Chinese police said they wanted to discuss Cheng Lei, an Australian journalist working for Chinese state media who disappeared into detention last month.
The whole episode was about harassment.
Diplomats struck a deal. Both journalists would be able to leave China if they agreed to a token interview.
It felt very political, and I very much felt like a diplomatic tussle.
Whatever the motive, the relief is obvious.
It's so good to be home, so happy. I can't say any more at the moment.
And the consequences clear. For the first time in decades, no major Australian media outlet has a journalist left in China. Trust between Australia and China is now at bedrock levels, and that mutual suspicion isn't limited to officials and politicians. China craves understanding for its political system and for its achievements, but gaining that appreciation just became much harder for Australians. Still, the ABC hasn't given up on China.
We'll get straight back on the front foot and be seeking to put correspondents back there.
And neither has Bill Birtles.
Hopefully the winds of change might blow in one way or another, and the window to get back there in future at some point reopens.
But for now, the door is slammed shut. Stephen Jeget's ABC News, Canberra.
And Olivia Xiong joins us from Chengdu in China right now. So, Olivia, what's been China's reaction to these journalists leaving?
Well, China's foreign ministry was asked about this latest development, and they did confirm that the 2 Australian journalists were indeed questioned by Chinese authorities. They also defended China's actions, saying that this is normal enforcement of the law. But the foreign ministry did not elaborate on what exactly these journalists were questioned about, although other reports seem to point to relation with the case of the detained Australian business presenter Cheng Lei, who works for CGTN, and this is what the foreign ministry had to say.
此举属于正常执法行为，在对比尔和史密斯执法过程中，中方有关部门严格依法办事。
According to reports, it seems that these 2 journalists were told that they were persons of interest relating to the investigation of Cheng Lei, this business presenter with CGTN who has been detained. But the foreign ministry also said in its statement that, if foreign journalists follow the Chinese laws, they have nothing to worry about. However, we do have to note that the Foreign Correspondents Club of China has also reported a record number of foreign journalists being expelled from China, 17 of them in the first half of this year alone, and that's because China has not, renewed their press credentials. And the Foreign Correspondents Club did say that it strongly opposes the use of journalists as pawns in wider diplomatic disputes, and this comes as tensions between China and Australia continue to escalate in the broader picture.
Olivia, we haven't known why, Cheng Lei has been detained, why she was detained last month, but it seems that we do have some indication now.
Yeah, this is the first time that Chinese authorities are actually revealing more details about the case. What we do know is that this Australian business presenter with CGTN, Cheng Lei, she had been detained sometime in August for about 3 weeks now, and she had been put under residential surveillance, but the charges had not come to light. But this time, the Foreign Ministry is saying today that Cheng Lei is suspected of carrying out illegal activities that endanger the country's security, adding that compulsory measures have been taken and an investigation is underway. But what exactly these illegal activities could be, the Foreign Ministry did not elaborate on. But what we do know is that the larger picture, the backdrop, is deteriorating relations between China and Australia. For some time now, there have been, accusations by Australia of Chinese interference in society and over Huawei's involvement in Australia's 5G network. And more recently, China has been angered by Australia's call for there to be an international probe into the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. And so all this taking place with the two journalists having to leave China, as well as this case of the Australian presenter being detained, all coming amid this, growing tensions between these two countries.
Olivia, thank you very much for that update. Olivia Xiong there reporting for us from Chengdu.